The mystery of the silent planet. The Galactic Archive had records dating back millions of years, chronicling the rise and fall of civilizations across the stars. It documented supernovas, planetary collapses, cosmic anomalies, and most importantly, the natural disasters that shaped every inhabited world. Every world, except one. Earth. The quiet, unassuming third planet of a backwater system. A world where a young species, humans, had rapidly risen to prominence. There were records of their wars, their technological advancements, their first steps into space. But when archivist Terran Vell examined Earth's geological history, he found something impossible. There were no natural disasters on record. No mega-earthquakes. No planetary extinction asteroids. No volcanic winters or superstorms strong enough to reshape continents. Nothing. For a world that had existed for billions of years, this was unheard of. And Terran Vell knew one thing with absolute certainty. This was wrong. Unraveling the lie. Terran sat in the dim glow of the Archive's planetary analysis chamber, hollow projections of Earth's geological data spiraling around him. He sifted through the findings once more, looking for the usual catastrophic cycles found on every inhabited planet. Still nothing. His mandibles clicked in irritation. There were small-scale disasters, yes. Localized floods, minor volcanic eruptions, regional earthquakes, but nothing galactic records would consider planet-shaping events. This is impossible, he muttered. Terran compared the data to other Class M planets. In every case, natural disasters wiped out dominant species at some point in their evolutionary cycle. It was a universal rule. But not Earth. And that meant only one thing. The records had been altered. Digging where no one dared. Terran broke through Galactic Council encryption barriers, delving into restricted records, searching for anything that could explain this anomaly. And then he found it. A classified data stream, buried deep beneath layers of security. Information that hadn't been accessed in centuries. He hesitated. If the Council had hidden this, there had to be a reason. But curiosity was a fire that refused to be extinguished. Terran opened the file. Instantly, his display was flooded with fragmented reports. Satellite imagery, mission logs, hastily written warnings. Some were corrupted, others deliberately redacted. But one transmission stood out. A grainy video recording. A ship, one of the first alien vessels to study Earth up close, had been monitoring the planet. His scanners picked up something unusual. Terran's eyes widened as the footage played. Earth's crust had shifted unnaturally. Not from a natural fault line movement but something deliberate. The tectonic plates had adjusted themselves. Manually. As if the planet itself had corrected an impending disaster before it could occur. Terran's blood ran cold. The impossible truth. The feed continued. The alien vessel, confused by the strange tectonic behavior, sent deeper scans into Earth's mantle. And that was when they saw it. Something beneath the planet's crust. Something watching. The ship's crew barely had time to react. The footage cut to static, then a brief final log entry. The crew's last words echoed through the silent chamber. Earth is not a planet. It is an entity. And then the file ended. Terran sat frozen. The implications were terrifying. Earth wasn't just a world where humans had evolved. It was alive. A vast, ancient intelligence hidden beneath the surface, guiding, protecting, and perhaps controlling everything that lived on it. The lack of disasters wasn't luck. It was design. And whatever lived beneath Earth's surface had ensured no force, natural or otherwise, could ever wipe out its inhabitants. For the first time in his long career, Terran regretted searching for the truth. He wasn't sure he wanted to know what happened next. The archivist's nightmare. Terran Vell's breath came in short, panicked gasps as he sat frozen before the now silent data terminal. The words of the lost crew echoed in his mind. Earth is not a planet. It is an entity. The concept was impossible. Planets don't think. They don't react. They don't prevent disasters from happening like some unseen caretaker. And yet Earth did. He forced himself to think. Perhaps the crew had been mistaken. Perhaps their ship had been compromised by delusions, a technical failure, or the paranoia that came with deep space exploration. But that didn't explain the records being erased, the evidence hidden beneath layers of encryption. The Galactic Council had gone to great lengths to bury this truth, ensuring that no one ever learned what they had discovered. Which meant only one thing. They were terrified of it. And if the Council was afraid, Terran Vell should be terrified too. The watcher beneath the surface. A sudden noise made his mandibles click involuntarily. A subtle, barely perceptible humming sound. The data terminal. Terran's eyes darted toward the screen. The restricted file he had accessed was still running, even though the video had ended. Something was trying to connect. He reached for the console, ready to sever the link before the council's security AI locked him out. But then the screen glitched. Not the red warning lights of an encryption breach. Not the automatic shutdown sequence of restricted data. This was different. Something alien. The text flickered into view, appearing one word at a time in an ancient, nearly forgotten dialect of Galactic Standard. You are not supposed to know. Terran's heart pounded against his ribs. He wasn't typing. No system he had ever used typed like this. This was not the Galactic Council. Something else was speaking to him. His mandibles trembled as he carefully typed back. Who is this? The answer came instantly. A witness. A survivor. A warning. Terran's fingers hovered over the keys. He had uncovered countless secrets in his lifetime. He had studied ancient wars, civilizations wiped from history, terrible truths buried beneath time. But nothing had ever sent a message back. He swallowed, forcing himself to respond. What happened to the crew of the ship? The terminal flickered again. The answer was short. Devoured. Terran felt his insides turn to ice. The humming sound in the room grew louder. The last transmission. More text appeared. They saw it. They saw what should never be seen. IT awakened. And it fed. Terran's breath came in sharp gasps. His mind raced. What did they see? What was beneath the planet's surface? But the messages weren't stopping. The presence on the other side wanted him to know. Do not study Earth. Do not ask questions. Do not seek the depths. Leave. A shiver crawled down Terran's spine. The warning was clear. But something inside him, something darker, needed to know more. He steeled himself and typed one final question. What is it? The response took longer this time. As if the entity, whatever it was, hesitated. Then the words appeared. You call it Earth. We call it something else. The sleeping hunger. Terran's stomach clenched. Leave. Before it knows you are looking. The screen abruptly shut off. The room fell into an unnatural silence. Terran sat there, trembling as he realized the full horror of what he had uncovered. Earth was not just protected by an unseen force. It was the force itself. And if it was alive, if it was watching, then every species in the galaxy had been walking blindfolded into the mouth of something that never needed to hunt. Because it had already won. The feeding ground. Terranvel did not move. The room was silent, the data terminal black, yet his mind screamed. You call it Earth. We call it the sleeping hunger. That message had not come from any council records. It had not been written by a scientist, historian, or even a rogue hacker. It had responded to him. And worse, it knew he was looking. Terran's mandibles clicked as he forced himself to breathe, to calm his spiraling thoughts. He had to be rational. There had to be an explanation. Maybe the signal was a prank. Maybe an AI had become corrupted. Maybe. But deep inside he knew the truth. The Galactic Council's erasure of Earth's natural disasters was not about hiding human weaknesses. It was not a political maneuver. It was survival protocol. They had buried the records to prevent anyone from noticing what was missing. Because if someone looked too closely, if they asked the wrong questions, if they dug deep enough, Earth would know. Terran swallowed hard. His instincts screamed at him to flee. To destroy every record, to burn his research, to pretend he had never been here. And yet, something darker inside him whispered, learn more. The evidence buried beneath. He needed proof. He needed something beyond cryptic messages and erased files. Something physical. Terran's claws danced over the console, bypassing the shutdown protocol and forcing the system to restart. If the council had hidden the truth, then somewhere beneath layers of encryption, it still existed. He accessed planetary geological records first. And there it was. Or rather, there it wasn't. Every inhabited world, every moon, every celestial body had a natural cycle of destruction. Earth should have been no different. Tectonic shifts, volcanic activity, tsunamis, hurricanes. But for the past 3,000 years the record showed nothing. Earth was unnaturally still. Terran's claws twitched. That was impossible. Even the most advanced civilizations couldn't fully suppress nature. Unless it wasn't being suppressed. Unless it was being held in place. By something far older. Something with a will. The vanishing expeditions. Terran pushed further, now searching for off-world survey data. Surely alien probes had scanned Earth. Other species had visited. The files were there at first. Then they weren't. One by one, records vanished before his eyes. The system was deleting them in real time. Something was watching him. His breath hitched. His mandibles clenched tight as he forced himself to think. There had to be something they couldn't erase, something beyond the Council's reach. Then he had it. Private expedition logs. Unauthorized missions. The smugglers. The ones who ignored restrictions. The data flooded in, half-corrupted, fragmented, but it was there. And every single one ended the same way. Surface team vanished. No signs of struggle. No remains. Probe sent into lower mantle, signal lost. Metallic wreckage found, warped beyond recognition. Fleet Admiral Tkora's vessel entered orbit. Transmission ceased after 48 minutes. No debris found. Survivor retrieved. Nonverbal. Unresponsive. Claw marks found on interior walls of escape pod. Analysis suggests self-inflicted. Terran's stomach twisted. He scrolled further, his heart pounding. One log stood out. The final transmission of the Zorro's research vessel. It was only 2 words. ITCs. Terran's vision blurred. His limbs trembled. He was not supposed to know this. No one was supposed to know this. Earth was not a planet. It was a feeding ground. And all of them, every species that ever lived, were in its orbit. The awakening. A clicking sound broke the silence. Terran's eyes darted to the terminal. His security clearance had been revoked. The system had locked him out. And then, the humming sound returned. Not from the console. Not from the ship. From outside. A deep, thrumming resonance vibrating through the hull. Terran's claws dug into the console. This was not a malfunction. This was not interference. Something was resonating through the void itself. Something massive. Something aware. And then he realized. He had been looking at Earth through data, through records, through history. But Earth was looking back. The truth beneath. Terran Vel could not move. The ship's hull vibrated around him, a deep, thrumming sound that should not have been possible in the vacuum of space. It was like the universe itself was murmuring in response to his discovery. His screen was black. His clearance was revoked. The files were gone. But that didn't matter. Because he had already seen too much. And more importantly, it had seen him. Terran's breath came in shallow gasps, his claws gripping the edge of the console hard enough to splinter the surface. He was trained for high-stress situations. He had witnessed planetary annihilations, black holes consuming entire fleets. But this was something else. Outside the observation window, Earth floated in its unnatural stillness, a perfect, silent jewel against the void. But now Terran saw it for what it really was. Not a planet. Not a world. Not a home. A slumbering entity. A patient predator. And now, for the first time in centuries, it was waking up. The message from below. A chime echoed through the control deck. Incoming transmission. Terran's mandibles twitched. That was impossible. His communications had been severed, his security revoked. No external signals should have been able to reach him. And yet, new message received. His claw hesitated over the control panel. Every instinct screamed at him to run, to flee, to burn his ship and forget this place forever. But he had come this far. Terran opened the message. The screen flickered to life. At first, it was darkness, a shifting void that sent a chill down his spine. Then, a sound. Oh, rumbling. Breathing. The darkness shifted. No, not darkness. Something moved. And then a voice. A voice that was not a voice, that bypassed sound entirely and spoke directly into his mind. You looked too closely. Terran's breath hitched. His claws trembled over the console. You wanted to know why Earth does not break. The ship shook violently. A warning klaxon blared, but no impact registered on his instruments. Because Earth is not a world. IT is a prison. Terran's heart stopped beating. The transmission continued, cold and inevitable. We do not have natural disasters. Because we do not allow them. Because if the surface breaks. Pause. Something shifted in the deep. They get out. The deep ones stir. The ship's proximity alarm screamed. Terran snapped his gaze to the sensors. The readings were impossible. The gravitational field around Earth was shifting. Not a planetary shift. Not a cosmic event. It was reacting. Something beneath the surface was stirring. Terran fumbled for the ship's drive controls, his claws shaking. He had to leave. No. He punched in the escape trajectory. The engines roared to life. Then died. Power failure. The humming grew louder. Terran turned back to the viewport. And his mind broke. Something moved beneath the clouds. Something so massive, so ancient, that his mind struggled to comprehend it. Dozens. Hundreds. opening beneath the surface of the earth, watching him. A voice, deeper than the fabric of reality itself, whispered, "You were never meant to know." The planet's surface cracked. Not a natural shift. Not an earthquake. A wound. And from that wound something reached out. Terran screamed as the darkness pulled him in. Silence returns. The Galactic Council later reported Terran Vel's vessel as missing. No wreckage was found. No distress signal was received. His research files were erased. His name was quietly removed from official records. Earth continued its silent orbit, unchanging, untouched, undisturbed. And no one ever questioned it again. Fire, what secrets still lie beneath Earth? Would you have dared to look? Subscribe for more stories that unravel the unknown.